Welcome back to the Tool Crib. Today we are going to be looking at the all-new Leatherman Raptor Response, and we're going to be comparing that to the original Leatherman Raptor, which has been newly renamed and is now called the Leatherman Raptor Rescue. Now, there are some key differences between these two. We're going to be talking about some of those, including some of the materials, the overall configuration, the tooling, the size, weight, comfort, all those things we're going to try to hit on. So let's get into the comparison between the Leatherman Raptor Response and the Rescue. Now, when we set these two side by side, you can kind of get an idea of how much larger in overall size the original Leatherman Raptor is compared to the new Leatherman Raptor Response. Now, as far as the cutting surfaces go, they match up identically. So for the shears and for the ring cutter that come equipped with the Leatherman shears, they're both going to be on par with one another. Other than you're going to have with the material on the new Response, they took that 428C and they polished it, and so it's going to be a lot more rust resistant than what you get with that matte finish that normally came with the Leatherman Raptor or the Leatherman Raptor Rescue. So that's a key difference. And one of the biggest complaints you hear about the Raptor, especially from those in first response scenarios where that's their job, EMS, EMT, stuff like that, then one of the biggest issues with the Leatherman Raptor, or now Raptor Rescue, is the fact that they'll kind of flash rust, especially if you don't take care of them because of that matte finish. Now that's something that Leatherman has been known for, and it's across all of their multi-tools. It's just because of the matte finish that they put on their blades and stuff. If it's a tool that you're going to set in a drawer, when you come back to it, if you leave it for a year and you come back to it, it's more than likely you're probably going to have some areas that might get some rusting to them. Now, this is especially true of something like the Raptor, which is going to be used in scenarios where you're going to be using it in areas that are going to be more prone to rusting. So when you're getting fluids, and that could be just from excessive cleaning too. If you're getting fluids, if you're working around trauma patients, and inevitably you're going to get blood and bodily fluids on these types of tools, and they have to be cleaned. And when you're cleaning them, depending on how they get dried, then it's more apt to get that type of flash rusting, and this new finish is going to help alleviate some of that. So that's a kind of a big thing, and I'm kind of glad to see that they have made some improvements to the steel itself, so that it is less likely to rust. So that's one point for the Response for sure. Now, with the tooling also, let's talk about the overall size first. The overall length on the Response when you got it in open position is about 7 3/8 of an inch. Where on the Raptor Rescue, obviously it's a bit larger, especially including the carbide breakout here. That glass break is going to bring it out to about 8 1/4 inches. So it is a lot larger in overall profile than what you get with the Response. Now let's close them up, and here's something I want to show you too, is that the Response is quite a bit smaller in profile as far as the overall dimensions, but it is also thicker. So when you turn them on their sides, you notice that the Response it's not a huge difference, but it's noticeable. So it's about 3/16 of an inch in overall width, thicker than what you get with the original. Here's the issue, though, is that one of the things that you get with the original Raptor or the Raptor Rescue is you get the case that comes with it. Now, with this case, you can put the Rescue in either orientation, either in closed position, or you can put it in the open position as well, and it will lock in there. Now, when it's in the open position, you have to push this little flap back in order to extract them, but you get the idea. This is a very nice case that comes with it. It's also 360-degree rotatable, so that's a very nice option for the original Raptor. Now, with the Raptor Rescue, also you get the pocket clip where you can carry it either in the case or you can put it with the pocket clip. Now, with the Response, you don't get that case. You only get the pocket clip. And so while this is more convenient to carry in the pocket because of its smaller profile, it would have been nice had they added some type of case, even if they would have put a soft case with it, especially considering that we're only asking $10 less. Now, I had to double check the price of the Rescue. It might have gone up in recent, I haven't checked the pricing on it in a while, but it used to be around the $80 mark, wherein the Raptor Response is coming in at the $70 mark. Now, because of its overall size, one thing that I have noticed right off the start, and the first time I use these, is how much more comfortable it feels to me to use the Leatherman Raptor Response. So with the Leatherman Raptor, and I have fairly large hands, but to use this effectively, I have to use 3 fingers into the larger hole slot and then my thumb on the other side, and then you have the finger rest here for the for your index finger. Now with the Response, you handle it a little bit differently, and so your fingers get spread out apart. So on the back side, it has the curve for your pinky rest, and then your forefinger rest, and then 2 fingers into the slot, and then your thumb hole. And these are actually, it is a lot more comfortable to use in that orientation. I have found it way more comfortable because for whatever reason, you're getting more leverage when you can get out there and get your hands spread out a little further. It's just, it's way easier to use, in my opinion. You wouldn't necessarily think about that unless you put them in hand, but once you grab them and compare them against one another, I can tell you that the Response for me is a lot more comfortable being able to spread my fingers out a little bit further there to get that a little bit more leverage, and I'm able to operate them just a little bit smoother. So that is a huge plus for me when it comes to the difference between the Response and the Rescue. Now, one thing I'm also going to say is that one of the downsides to this is we noticed earlier that the Response is a little bit thicker than that of the Rescue. Now, that's going to leave the handles separated a little bit further apart than what you get with the original. Now, I thought that would be kind of a huge deal breaker because this is one of the detractors for the Raptor shears, is because the handles are offset. Over time, if you're using them for long periods of time, you get a little bit of fatigue out of these if you're using them constantly. And by constantly, let's say you're cutting on something for a good 15-20 minutes. That's the type of times I'm talking about. If you're just pulling them out to cut through a patient's jeans or something like that, just their clothing, and then you're putting them back away, it's not really something that you might notice. But when you're using them in other applications and you're using them for longer periods of time, that is something that I definitely notice. So the overall use of the Response, or the comfort of the Response, I think really wins over the original Leatherman Raptor. I actually like that they're a little bit smaller in profile, and they still maintained the same shear size, if you will. So that's a huge thing. Now, when it comes to the tooling, you've lost a couple of the tools that you got with the original Leatherman Raptor, or now the Raptor Rescue. So those 2 tools are going to be the carbide glass break, which does not come on the Raptor Response, and the seatbelt tool. Now, with the seatbelt tool integrated into it, you also have the oxygen wrench, or the O2 wrench. So one thing I love about this strap cutter is that it can be used both in the open and in the closed position. So you can see that it protrudes down past the shears themselves, and so if you need to be using both at the same time, you're cutting and then you're ripping through articles of clothing, this is a very nice solution the way they came up and they engineered it into the original. Now, you can also use this in the closed position, so if you just need to access that, you can definitely use this by itself without having the shears open, and it's liner locked, and that is a very nice option. It also includes the O2 wrench included in there. Now, with the Response, obviously you don't get that glass break, and you don't get that strap cutter. So that could be a kind of a deal breaker for a lot of people. Now, with the O2 wrench, though, they integrated into the handle back here, and now your lanyard ring is out here on the tip as opposed to where it was located with the original. So it depends on whether or not you have a necessity for that glass break and that strap cutter. Most of my tasks that I'm using for these tools for my personal Leatherman Raptor, is just cutting tasks, strictly using the shears. So for me, that's not a big deal. But if you are in a medical profession or first responder, that might be a deal breaker for you, that you may need to have that particular tool is so beneficial to you that it's better to go with the Leatherman Raptor original. From an overall, just the overall comfort of these is very nice. Now, with these handles, they started using aluminum handles with the Response, wherein they were using, I'm not even sure the actual material that they use, a type of plastic. It might be glass reinforced nylon that they use in the handle material for the original Leatherman Raptor. So even though this is smaller in profile and even though it has one less tool, it actually weighs just a tick higher than what the Leatherman Raptor does. So this one comes in at 5.67 ounces, where the original is about 5.6. So that 5.67 translates to 161 grams. So they're both really on par with one another as far as overall weight. Neither one of them is enough that it weighs enough that it's a deal breaker for me either way. There's a couple of things that I do like about this. I definitely like the fact that they've polished up the steel to make it more rust resistant. The ring cutter's the same on it, so it operates identically. I like the feel of the aluminum handles too, and you'll notice that just the placement of everything, it's just the way your hand seats across the handles on this. I find it so much more comfortable, even though the handles are spread out further apart from one another. It's a lot more comfortable to use for me. Now, the one thing I wish they would have done is if they would have left in this tool. Of course, the configuration is just so much different that, I would have liked to seen a strap cutter, some way that they could have left it in there. It's going to be a deal breaker for some people. For me, again, it's not that big a deal. So there are some key differences. In some regards, the Response is a little better from a comfort standpoint, and also it's available in 3 different colors. They have a crimson, they have a like a navy blue, and then they have this more of a charcoal gray. I think they called it black, but it's really more of a charcoal gray for me, which I like that color. And with the Leatherman Raptor, there's various different color combinations, including safety orange and reds and greens and blues and all kinds of stuff. And I imagine over time we'll probably see more anodized aluminum colors with the new Response as well. So overall, I like both of these products. If I had some detractors with the new Response, is the fact that it doesn't have a strap cutter, which I would have liked. The glass break is not really a big deal, but I would have liked to seen a strap cutter in this. And the second thing is, for only $10 less, they really should have come up with a case for this. Now, not necessarily saying that they had to have the type of case that they used with the original, but if they would have had just a soft case that could be used on a belt carry, I think they could have thrown that in there and it would have been very nice, especially in the form or the style that Leatherman makes their cases now. If they would have made a nylon case with that snap closure, that's just a little wider, that's specifically designed for this tool, that would have been great, and I would have been completely happy with that as well. As it stands, I like the new Response. I think it's pretty well done. I think more so than anything for me, it comes down to the comfort aspect of it, because I'm usually only using the shears. But you'll have to decide for yourself which one, if those other tools are important enough to you that it requires having the original or the Raptor Rescue as opposed to the Raptor Response. My name is Ben. You've been watching the Texas Tool Crib. I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you in the next one.